What's going on YouTube? Today we're doing the room Linux forensics from TryHackMe. I'm going to show you guys the various system commands that are used to perform Linux forensics. Of course, the commands that will be shown in this video are not the only exhaustive list of all the commands. Linux forensics is much bigger than only performing a couple commands, right? So basically, in today's video, we're going to go over a couple commands categories and taking specific examples to show how to do Linux forensics as part of this room. So let's get started. Now, this room contains a couple of questions, as you can see, for every task. We're gonna answer the questions after we show the related commands that help you find the answers. So deploy the machine and access the machine using the terminal from the attached. As you can see, you can click on split view and you will be able to interact with the machine. Linux 4 and 6. Okay then. Alright. Some commands that we perform or we execute during Linux forensics are actually the same when we conduct manual privilege escalation. For example, if we want to learn information about the system installed, there are a couple commands that we issue that are actually the same when we perform Linux privilege escalation. To understand what I mean, let's take an example. So if you want to see system and kernel information, we might type uname-a, or we can cat the version, or we can issue this command or OS release. There are multiple commands to perform the same to get the same objective. So we can use the following command to get information about the system and the kernel. So cat etc os release. You see, we have now release information or system information. As you can see, the Ubuntu, the version, other information about the operating system installed. So these are, we call them OS release information. Now if we use uname-a, again we see similar, but of course shorter content than the content released by etc/os-release. You can also use cat proc version. Now the above two commands are to get the version, the type and the version of the current system installed. OS release to get information about the system release and other useful information such as the version, the name, and other details about the system installed. Now after learning information about the system, we aim to learn what are the users installed or what are the users added on the system. So viewing the users isn't that difficult. We just use cat etc/passwd. Okay, so this file contains information about the user accounts that exist on Linux system. Okay, now the output, as you can see, contains entries separated by colon. As you can see, the colon separates between items on every line. So basically what these represent, let's take an example. So this is the username TryHackMe, right? And then we have the X. The X means that the password information for the user TryHackMe exists in a file called etc/shadow. And then we have the UID, which is 1001, and we have again the GID 1001, the description of the account, and lastly we have the, not lastly actually, the item before the last item is /home/TryHackMe, which is the home path of the user TryHackMe, and then we have the default shell. So when you see /bin/bash, it means that we can SSH or log in as TryHackMe. But if you take the case, for example, the case of GTM, if you see the default shell is set to /bin/false, which means that GDM, you cannot log in using GDM. It doesn't have shell. So why do some accounts have /bin/false and some other accounts like TryHackMe have /bin/bash? It means simply because some accounts are configured so that you can log in with them, such as TryHackMe. GDM is an account that's configured so you cannot log in as GDM, right? So this is useful, right, for security purposes. For example, when a WordPress website is compromised, after compromising the control panel, you seek to get a limited shell on the system. Most of the time, the limited shell is achieved as www.data, which is a web server user. Now, why you are able to log in as www.data? This is because the user is configured to have a shell. You should set www.data and other service accounts to have /bin/false, so someone cannot log in as these accounts if a system compromise or a vulnerability is exploited. Nevertheless, now let's see how we can view information about the groups. So cat etc groups. Okay, so you can see information about the groups. For example, let's take an example here. Okay, take this one, NetDev. So NetDev is a group where Ubuntu is part of it, right? And we see again BlugDev, a group where Ubuntu is part of it. So Ubuntu is the user and BlugDev is the group. So we see the group and the users that are part of it. As you can see, this one, ADM. So ADM is a group where syslog and Ubuntu users are part of it. Now, sometimes we want to issue a command as sudo in elevated mode, but we can't. Why? Because the current user doesn't exist in the sudoers list. To view the sudoers list means we need to view who are the users that can issue a command as sudo. So cat etc sudoers. You see, it's permission denied. Let's try this. Okay. Let's go over the file. As you can see, root is configured as a sudo user. Admin as well. So here we see all of the users that can issue commands as sudo. If you want a user to be able to issue a command as sudo or in elevated mode, you can add them to the sudoers list. Okay. Let's see here. Now, let's go and answer a couple of questions on the first task. First task is introduction. The next one doesn't have questions. The third one, okay, in the attached VM, there is a user account named TryHackMe. What's the UID of this account? Let's take a look. So cat etc passwd. So TryHackMe, the UID of the account comes after the X, which is 1001. Which two users are the members of the group audio? Okay, now we go back and cat etc groups grep audio. Oh, so the S here, we have to remove it. So the audio group contains Ubuntu and Pulse. So Ubuntu and Pulse are part of it. A session was started on this machine on Saturday, April 16. How long did this session last? Now, this question is related to viewing the logs. We're gonna view the logs, or we're gonna deal with the logs at the very end of the video. I'm gonna put this at the very last. So let's go now to task 2 and see what kind of questions we have to answer. So what's the host name of the attached VM? Okay, so cat etc host name. So it is Linux 4 and 6. what is the time zone of the attached VM? Now, viewing the time zone is very important, guys, especially if you're performing forensics. Cat etc time zone. So it is Asia Karachi. Okay. What program is listening on the address 127.0.0.5.9.0.1? Okay. So now we need to view the network information, or we need to view the active network connections. We can achieve that using the netstat utility. So netstat-natp. Okay, as you can see now, we have the current machine is listening on port 5901, and the service that is using that port is xtiger vnc. So this is the answer for your question. Okay, what is the full path of this program? Okay, so the full path can be found by typing which and the program name, tiger vnc. So it is /user/bin/xtiger vnc. Read about the flags used above with the netstat and the ps commands in their respective man pages. Now, apart from the questions, let's go over other couple commands used as part of Linux forensics. Okay then, so we know how to view the host name, the time zone. Let's see how we can view the network information of a host. Okay, apart from that, let's see how we can list information about the IP of the machine, the current network interfaces it's connected to. So we can do that using ifconfig. Okay, or we can say IP address show. So we see we have two interfaces, the loopback and Ethernet 0. Ethernet 0 has the IP 10.10.29.129.4. Viewing network interfaces and being able to view the IP addresses connected to them is tremendously important while conducting privilege escalation as well, since sometimes we may intend to pivot from one machine into another. So if you want to pivot into another machine, you have to be able to view its IP address, or at least the network that's part of. So sometimes this machine is connected to other machine on an entirely different subnet or different network. So you can find that by using IP address show or ifconfig. You'll be able to see the network interfaces and the associated IP addresses. Okay, now let's see how we can view the running processes. I think all of you know that. PS, AUX. Here we'll be able to see all of the running processes, the PID of each process, the full path of it. Tremendously important information. Now, what about DNS information? Cat etc hosts. Here we see all of the DNS assignments. For example, as you can see, the loopback address is assigned to localhost. That's it. Now, sometimes when you do CTF machines, you may need to assign the IP address a name. So what you can do, you can put the IP address of the machine here and then the DNS name. Also, if you want to configure a specific name or a specific match for a specific host or IP address, you can just set the IP address here and the corresponding name which you will use for accessing that service or that page. Okay then. Now let's go over the other task and see what kind of questions we have to answer. So task 3 is done. For now 5. In the bash rc file, the size of the history file is defined. What is the size of the history file that is set for the user repository in the attached VM? Okay, now here we go over the history of commands executed, okay, and also cron jobs as well as startup services. So if we clear this, the first thing that we will do, guys, is viewing the cron jobs. So cat etc cron tab. So as can be seen, guys, this file contains information about the time interval after which the specified command has to run. So we see the username that runs the command, and we see the command itself. For example, this one. Sometimes in a fully configured or in a fully productive system, we see several other entries for other cron jobs. It also contains scripts, right, to run, where the script that needs to be run will be placed on the disk and the command to run it will be added to this file. So you specify the files or the scripts and the commands that will run after specific time or during each interval. For example, commands that will be run on a daily basis on a specific time, midnight or midday, whatever. And we specify the user that will run the command. Okay, now let's see how we can. Let's scroll down. Log files will be postponed to the very end of the video. Network interfaces, startup commands. Okay, startup services. What about startup services? So ls etc. Okay, so here, like in Windows, guys, services can be set up in Linux that will start and run in the background after every system boot. Just like in Windows, we can find the list of services that run once the system boots up under /etc/initialized.d. Very important during forensics. So you got the startup services, you got the cron jobs, and another important piece of information is the commands that run after the system starts up. So in Linux, we can also configure commands to run in the background when the shell is spawned. So what we can do, guys, we can go to cd home, cd ubuntu. This changes for every user profile. For Ubuntu, we can see the bash rc file. So cat bash rc. Here we're able to see the configurations and the commands that will run in the background after the shell is spawned for the user Ubuntu. Of course, we're talking about user Ubuntu. This changes for every single user. So in the question that we saw, let's go back to the question. In the bash rc file, the size of the history file is defined. What's the size of the history file that's set for the user Ubuntu in the attached VM? To view that, we'll need to view the value of the variable hist file or hist file size, something like that. So cat bash rc and grep okay, so we see it's set history file size is 2000, which marks the answer for this question. Okay, next task. The user TryHackMe used apt-get to install a package. What was the command that was issued? And what was the current working directory when the command to install net tools was issued? So here again we need to view the history of commands executed, but in the first question we have to see the privileged commands where the sudo was used in the command. On the other hand, in the next question, what was the current working directory when the command to install net tools was issued? So this one could be elevated where sudo was used, or could be non-elevated. So in the first question, to answer the question, we have to find out the history of the commands or the elevated commands. Okay, cat var log. So we can view the cat var log and the file will be authentication log. This is where we see the history of the elevated commands. grep-i. Let's say the command is apt-get tail binary file standard input matches. Okay, we change this to a. Okay, so we see the command /user/bin/apt-get install nettools was issued as root, and the current working directory was home/home/ubuntu. So this is one of the commands that were issued with sudo, and it is actually, or the command actually contains the answer of the question that we have here. So if you go, what was the current working directory when the command to install nettools was issued? It is /home/ubuntu, as shown here. But we can't see the command sudo apt-get install apache 2, although it is elevated command, but I cannot see it here. No, it is actually here. So /user/bin apt-get install apache 2. This also contains the answer for the first question. So here, sudo apt-get install apache 2, you can find it here. Okay. Now to the log files. Okay. So for the log file, all of the log files are stored under cd var log. Here we see all kind of logs: system logs, authentication logs, failed logins, successful logins, service logs. For example, let's take an example. btemp contains the failed logins. We have also the wtemp contains the history of logins. Authentication log contains the history of all of the authentication operations: SSH authentications, FTP authentication, system authentication. We have also the syslog, contains information about the system activity. So when it comes to logs, you can find all the logs under /var/log. Some of these logs can be viewed with cat utility or veeam, but some of them need to be viewed using other utilities. For example, the btemp and wtemp. These both files cannot be viewed with cat, so you have to use them with a tool called the last. So if we go to the logs section of this file, okay, so the btemp can be viewed with the command last. Let's take an example. So last -f btemp. Yep, we will have to use sudo. As you can see, it's opened. If we try with wtemp, here we see all of the successful, or all of the history of the logins, along with the time. These are very important when performing forensics, as you know. Okay, so let's go to the log files here and answer the last question. I think we have other questions here. Evidence of execution. Okay, log files. Oh, okay, I remembered. So it is in task 3. We had a couple of questions about the logs. We didn't answer them. Okay, it's here. A session was started on this machine on Saturday, April 16, 2010. How long did this session last? So here we want to take a look at the history of the sessions, right? It means successful logins. So to view successful logins or sessions, we go to wtemp, and we already viewed this file. So we're looking to find out the entry at April 16, Saturday. So April 16, Saturday 2010, and it lasted for 1 minute and 32 seconds. Okay, now task 7. Though the machine's current host name is the one we identified in task 4, the machine earlier had a different host name. What was the previous host name of the machine? Now this one could be confusing. So you might be telling me that, yep, we can find the host name or the old host name by viewing the system commands or the commands that were executed, the history of the commands in bash rc file or the bash history file. This could be the answer to the question as well. Or we can view the syslog. Syslog contains all of the activity that happened on the system. So we can go this path or the other path. Let's first go with the syslog by viewing the syslog file. So cat etc var syslog, and then we grab hostname. Okay, let's see here. So hostname changed from none to Linux 4 and 6. Other than that, so it's not clear here whether the old hostname is found. So let's try with the bash history file. So cd home cd ubuntu bash history. Let's see if it's here. So bash history file. Nope, nothing. Going back. Okay, bash. Permission denied. Sudo. So in the history or the commands history, we haven't found anything. Let's go back to the syslog then. And we may need to look at other syslog files, the rotated ones, such as syslog.1. So cat now we're talking. Let's see. So from none to TryHackMe. That was the first assigned hostname, as you can see. And then it was changed again. Let's see. Go back, go down. So from TryHackMe, from none to TryHackMe, and then from TryHackMe to Linux 4 and 6. So that was the old host name of the machine, which marks the answer for this question. So this way, guys, we finished the room. I hope you like that, and I will definitely see you in the next video.